Hello, and welcome back to the Joy of Tennis Teaching. One of the things that's really fascinating me about this whole journey into the YouTube channel is I'm hearing from a lot of old friends. And last week was extra special because I heard from a fellow that was one of my favorite trainees I ever had. When he went through training for PBI, I was lucky enough to be his training director, and we worked a bit together over the years. Never full time at the same site, but anyway, it was great to hear from Justin Work. And Justin sent me a whole bunch of questions, and I promise I'll get to all of them eventually. But I'd like to start off with the last question. And I can't read the question to you right now because I'm having a particularly tough vision day. I can't even see my computer screen right here in front of my face. But um, to paraphrase the question, it was, have you ever had a student that you thought, yeah, this isn't going to work, that they just don't belong on the tennis court? Basically, the question was, is there a minimum skill level that you have to play tennis? I guess if I had to really paraphrase the question. Um, and I don't believe there is. That's the point of this story that I'm going to tell. I knew once there was a tennis coach who I watched, and his student wasn't very athletic and wasn't doing very well in the lesson, and the student, the teaching pro suggested that they might find golf more enjoyable. Well, I hated that idea. And I think one of our biggest jobs as tennis teaching professionals is to recruit people to the game. So I'm going to tell you a story. And the story goes back to my very first year at Camp Takaho back in the summer of 2000. And I was doing the preseason training, and it was a staff that had been at the camp for a few years. And through a quirk in his scheduling, the former tennis director showed up at preseason training. I think what he was planning on doing didn't work out, and he was hoping to get back in, but it ended up not working out. But he was very skeptical about me and the PBI teaching concepts, and he was buddies with a lot on the staff, so it wasn't a very easy situation. Anyway, I was doing one of the introduction classes to the staff, and I made a statement that I said, if you approach it from the right angle, you can help any student. I said, in my whole career, I don't think I had ever met a student that I couldn't help to some degree. Well, after the class was over, the former director, Tom, came up to me and said, that was a pretty arrogant statement. And I was like, well, I didn't mean it to be that way. I didn't say I could turn everybody into a touring pro. But I really do believe that if you approach it at the right level, you can help everybody to get some enjoyment out of tennis. You can help improve everybody's game. That the biggest mistake we make as tennis teachers is we advance the skill level too quick for our student. So let me tell you the story of that first summer. The former tennis director said, well, there's a kid at this camp who's going to break your record. This kid, I guarantee you won't be able to help. So I won't give the young man's name out here, but Tom told me who he was, and I made a point of looking for this boy, when the campers arrived. And it was his 6th or 7th summer at camp. He was a senior, and so he had mandatory tennis instruction every summer. But I went out and I watched him in one of his first skill period classes, and I had never seen anybody swing and miss at the ball so much. And to be honest, he really wasn't even trying to make contact. You could tell he hated it. So I waited till the class finished, and I went up to him and I introduced myself, and I said, would you like to get better at tennis? And he looked at me like I was crazy, and he said, I suck at tennis. I hate tennis. I said, yeah, I know that's where you're at right now. I said, but if I promise I could help you, Would you be willing to give it a try? Would you be willing to work with me just a few minutes every day and see what we could do? And he wasn't exactly enthusiastic, but I was persistent, and he agreed to it. And we started off with just 5 or 10 minutes a day, just tapping the ball down, doing the most basic hand-eye racket coordination drills that you can imagine. And it didn't work beautifully right away, but we'd do it for just a few minutes until he got a little success. And that was the secret, is I made sure he had some success, and then we would stop. In the course of a week or so, it got to the point where I was tossing balls to him and he was bumping them back to me from the service line. Again, just trying to make the most basic contact. Started to pick up a little bit of momentum, and pretty soon we were rallying the ball back and forth. Mini tennis depth, not full length yet. And pretty soon he was getting pretty excited to it, and we were stretching the time out till now we were doing 30-minute sessions. And he would go and tell the camp director that, yeah, Dan and I hit the ball 120 times without missing today. And we were really making some good progress. And most importantly, he was developing self-confidence and believing that he could learn how to play. The camp director came to me and said, "What are you doing with this kid? He keeps coming to my office every day." And I explained to him what was going on. Well, at Camp Takaho, there's skill periods and there's what they call league periods, where the boys have to participate in team matches in every sport: basketball, baseball, soccer, tennis. And this young man had played in the tennis league for, like I said, 6 or 7 summers. And not only had he never won a match, he had never won a game. So when the league started up, he was able to play a little bit, and he was a bit competitive. He wasn't getting beat at love in every game. And actually, one of his first matches, he should have gotten his first game. He made a bad call against himself. I'll never forget it. It was on the clay court, and he called the ball out, and the mark was there, and it was out, but his opponent challenged the call, and he was a nice kid, and he didn't want to be. Afterwards, I asked him, I said, "Why did you give the call away?" He said, "Well, I didn't want to be a bad sportsman." But anyway, he did manage to win a couple of games that summer. And most importantly, he came to enjoy playing the matches. So much so that on Parents Visiting Day, his mother came up to me and said, "What did you do to my son?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, he wrote home and he wanted us to bring him a tennis racket on visiting day, so he would have his own racket." One of the mandatory pieces of equipment at the camp was every camper was supposed to have their own tennis racket and baseball glove and so on. In his own silent protest, this young boy decided he would never own his own tennis racket. So when forced to do a tennis skill period or a tennis league match, he would borrow a bunkmate's racket and use it. But now he wanted to have his own racket. I didn't think that much of it that summer. It was an interesting, little part of my day to spend a few minutes with this boy, and it was very gratifying to see him take a liking to tennis and enjoy playing. But there was a lot of other things going on, and I didn't think it was that big a deal. Well, a few years later, I was at the Portland airport helping with the camper arrival pickups. And I spotted this boy, and he was obviously there for another camp working as a counselor and helping with their pickup. So I went over to him and said hello, and I said, "Well, what are you doing at this camp? Are you a tennis counselor?" And he laughed and he said, "No, I'm still not a very good tennis player." He says, "But I want you to know I still play all the time, and I really enjoy it." And I've got to tell you, it was so heartwarming to hear that he found a sport that he liked and enjoyed. And it was just because we didn't try to teach him full strokes at the beginning, but we just started where his athletic ability and skills could start him. So to answer Justin's question, I've never had a student that I felt could not improve. And this young man really was maybe the biggest challenge I've had in my entire career, but it was very, very gratifying to work with him and see his development. So the moral of the story is, if you have a student that's not learning the game, it's not the student's fault. Back down on your teaching. Find a level that they can succeed at. My good friend and the late great tennis coach Rob Smith used to always say that we can catch people doing things right, and that's where the lesson starts. So thanks very much. I appreciate the questions and the comments. I'm going to try to keep going with these videos, and it's great. I've got a backlog of questions now from people that I'll have to answer in the coming weeks. So get out there, get on court. I wish I was with you, and keep having fun with the joy of tennis teaching.